Welcome back to Eat the Scroll podcast. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to be starting in Hosea today. So if you want to grab your Bibles and a drink, whatever else you might need, and we'll see you back here in just a second.
Welcome back to Eat the Scroll. We're so glad that you guys have joined us today. We're getting into Hosea 1, but first, we have our little culture conversation that we always do.
Yay.
So I have a question for Lizzie, and the question is, what are some character traits in other people that you really respect?
Good question. So many. There's so many respectable things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll just pick like top 5.
Yeah.
Kindness.
Mm-hmm.
I just love a good, kind person.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I really strive to be kind. So kindness.
You are very kind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think punctuality. Like when people are.
I'm not too good at that. I might need to work on that for our friendship's sake.
No, I'm realizing as I'm saying this. No, but I do think it's not necessarily about being on time,
Mm-hmm.
even though that obviously is what punctuality is. But I think it's more the like care and respect that it shows when someone really tries to always show up when they say they're going to be and when they're supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, you don't even run late that often.
I feel like I run late all the time, but thanks. Maybe it's not as noticeable to other people.
You might just feel like you're always rushing because you think you're going to be late.
That's true. I'm bad at rushing.
Punctuality, I think, is big.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do really try to be punctual, but I feel like I can get places on time, but I don't plan enough ahead of time to enjoy the time before I have to be. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm so bad at that.
I struggle with that.
Life would be so much better if we were all good at that.
Yes. So kindness, punctuality, people who are well-spoken. I really love that.
Yeah.
And just doing this podcast has made me so much more aware of how I speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did it. I'm trying really hard to not say like anymore. And just things, but not just things like that, but the ability to articulate well and communicate well.
Yeah.
I want to be a good communicator.
Yeah. That's something that I... Honestly, okay, I'm going to put myself on blast because you do that all the time. Well-spoken people, that's like a trigger for jealousy for me.
Really?
Because I don't feel like I'm very good at it. Like,
I think you're so good at it.
I feel like I can never get out what I actually want to say. Like, I don't really have the right words for it. And so when I see people that are well-spoken that can just, like Lee or, like, any of the speakers that we see at the conference that we go to.
But they also are not the ones you should compare to.
I know,
Because they are so far above our level, and they've been
Mm-hmm.
doing it for years, and it's something they've practiced and practiced and
And that's
practiced.
their job, you know? So I get that, but I can easily get jealous of people like that. But, you know,
I totally get that.
Working on it.
Yeah.
And, you know, jealousy is just, in a way, flattery. It's like, oh.
There's something that you admire in someone else that you
that I admire in someone else that I just am being fleshly about. You know?
Yeah.
So.
I get that. But
That's a
I
good
feel
one.
like, especially in meetings and stuff, I think you're so well-spoken.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're very well-spoken in especially professional settings, I feel like.
Lovely.
Which is, I feel like, a unique aspect of being well-spoken.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thanks. Making me feel better.
So I really love that about people. Let's see, what else?
So you
There's so many
said
things. Kindness, punctuality,
being
well-spoken, and communicating well. I'm trying to go not like the obvious ones, like being respectful and all that. Humility.
Yeah.
Like true humility,
That's
not
my number
false humility or just
Yeah.
because I feel like sometimes something I struggle with or I catch myself in my own mind. I don't know if outwardly this is apparent, but in my own head, sometimes I want to say things or do things because I want people to think that I'm humble and think that I'm, I don't know.
I feel
I don't
like
know
I
if
do
that's
that
making
too.
sense.
No, it makes total sense. At
But-
least in my brain.
So I have to catch myself before I do stuff like that
Yeah.
and be like, why are you actually saying this, Lizzie? Is this true humility or is this you trying to act humble? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I really, really admire humility, and I think the Lord admires humility above almost everything.
Yeah, I read a scripture the other day that said, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble.
Yeah. There's so many verses about humility,
Yeah.
and Jesus was the ultimate picture of that. So
Yeah.
humility, how many is that, 4?
Yeah.
And number 5 would be, I think, productivity in a healthy way. Like, not productivity in the sense that you're just going, and you never rest.
Mm-hmm.
But I think productivity in the sense that you're not lazy. Yeah, productivity in the sense of not having idle hands. And,
Proverbs 31.
yes. Because I feel like the Lord is highlighting something in me that I can be idle in an unhealthy way sometimes. And sometimes I like to pass it off as like, oh, I'm just resting, or oh, I'm learning to have Sabbath time.
Self-care.
Sabbath is not being lazy.
No.
And so I am really trying to notice that in other people, like, people who do that well.
Yeah.
I feel like my husband, Kyle, has been he for a long time was on the side of being unhealthily productive, and all he did was work.
Mm-hmm.
And he's come back to a place where I feel like he's hitting that happy medium.
That's great.
And I'm just noticing that in him.
Aw,
And
good job, Kyle.
Yeah. So, yeah, kindness, punctuality, well-spokenness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's how you say that. Humility and healthy productivity.
That's so good. I'm going to try to think of 5. I don't know if I'll get there.
Yeah, that was a struggle. That took me way longer than it should have.
No, that's good. It took you like 5 minutes. That's great. Okay. My top one would also be humility. I can struggle with the same thing that you were talking about, like thinking that I'm being humble, but I'm like, wait, does that make me prideful?
Yeah.
That sometimes I think I'm humble? Yeah. So I don't know. That's very hard.
Yeah, finding true humility is so hard to do.
True humility is really hard. And so when I see that in another person and I'm like, that's real. Like, it's so easy to tell.
Yeah.
I feel like when people are just genuinely humble. And I really love that in people. My second one would be trustworthiness. It's really important that I trust people in the sense that if I tell you something in confidence, like, you're not gonna go tell somebody else.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so I guess trustworthiness, but also on the flip side of that coin, it's like gossip. And I'm guilty of gossip, and I'm guilty of being tempted to give information that's not mine. We can all do that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I feel safe enough with someone where I know they're not gonna talk about me or talk about something that I said to somebody else, that really means a lot to me. And I think I'm like, where did that come from? Probably high school. High school was just so drama all the time.
Yeah.
But anyways, and a good indicator, I think, of trustworthiness is the person you're with talking about somebody else.
Yeah.
Because if they're talking about somebody else, it might be pretty likely that when they're not with you, they're
Talking about you.
They're talking about you.
Yeah.
In a negative way.
Yeah.
I mean all this in a negative way, And so, humility, trustworthiness. I really respect, strong people. Strong personalities. And I think I'm drawn to people like that. I don't know how many of you are into the Enneagram, but I really am drawn towards 8s for some reason, which are the strong, courageous, protective, but can be aggressive and I really respect those types of people because I think they make me feel safe and protected. And then that would be 3. Yeah. I think 3 is enough for me, or else it would take me forever to sit here and think, but yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that would
Good
be the answer to my... There are lots of things I respect, but those 3 things are important to me personally.
I love that.
Was one of yours honesty?
No. But I do respect that in people.
I respect honesty, too.
Which I think plays into the trustworthiness.
And humility.
You can't trust someone who's not honest.
Yeah, I think it takes humility and trustworthiness to be honest.
Yeah.
And I really respect honesty in leadership and, like, transparency in leadership, because leaders are in the perfect place to deceive anybody because they have a type of power and authority, and they have, you know, things that other people don't have. And when they use that for good and for what?
Nothing.
Oh, you look like you're about to start laughing.
No.
Oh.
I scratched my eye.
Oh.
And then I was thinking about anyways.
Yeah. When powerful people use that position to be honest and transparent and vulnerable versus put themselves on a pedestal and make themselves seem other, that can really get on my nerves.
Yeah.
I feel like I can pick that out of a crowd.
I agree with that.
So.
Well, I think you do a great job of upholding all of the things that you respect in other people.
Thank you. Literally, you too.
Thanks.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thanks. Goodly.
All right.
That was a good little opener question. So we're going to get into Hosea 1, which might be a little different from what we've done so far, because we haven't been in the Old Testament yet, and we haven't done a story, like a narrative type of book yet.
Yeah. We did Acts, but it was only the first two.
Only the first 2 chapters. But we're going to do all of Hosea, which I think is 14. And we're going to try to do a couple chapters of video so that we don't spend the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, we're going to try and get through 1 and 2 today in this episode. So we'll see how it goes. Y'all know us. We get started and then we
start
get off
talking.
on little rabbit trails.
Which is the point of this.
Yeah,
so.
well, we're going to try and watch our time, but
let's get into it.
So, Hosea.
Do you want to read your little intro description?
Yeah, so mine actually combines, the intro combines Hosea and Amos, which is fine. It'll apply to both. But Hosea is, as we said, an Old Testament book. And I kind of feel like it's important to just speak to the fact that the Old Testament is not null and void because of the New Testament. Jesus came to fulfill the law and prophets, and everything in the Old Testament ultimately points to him and creates this really beautiful foundation for why he even had to come in the first place. And so without the Old Testament and everything that happened in it and all of the craziness and the sacrifices and the wars and the adultery and literally the madness.
It's madness.
Without all of that, Jesus wouldn't hold the significance that he does in the way that he does because of what was set in place before he ever arrived. And so the Old Testament is really important, and it's really significant to understand the Old Testament in order to understand really who Jesus was and all that he did. Yeah.
And it just gives us it tells us a lot about who God is.
Yeah.
You know, not just Jesus, not just the Holy Spirit, not just the Father, but God as a whole, and what his characteristics are, and who he is, how he acts, what he does.
He's so multifaceted.
His processes. I mean, that's what I think a lot of the Old Testament is. I'm like, this is God's processes. Right. This is how he set things into place. Yeah. And the only way to fix that is Jesus.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I say this a lot, but I always go back to God's original plan with the garden and Adam and Eve and what he had intended for Eden to be. Mm-hmm. And without that and all that happened with, the sin and the fall of man and all of that is what set in place this whole thing that caused Jesus to have to come and redeem us all. And so we literally need from the very first words of the Bible until the very end, because without it we won't have a fullness of understanding. So without that and the Holy Spirit to give us revelation.
Girl.
All right.
Do you want to... Okay, so you're going to read your little thingy about Hosea and Amos?
Yeah, it's short. So it does combine Hosea and Amos. We're only reading Hosea, but you should still get it. I'll try and skip over the stuff about Amos. So it says, Amos and Hosea are the only two writing prophets in the Old Testament who focused on the northern kingdom of Israel. A generation earlier, Elisha, and before him, Elijah, had likewise targeted the northern kingdom. Amos and Hosea were the earliest of the writing prophets and were the first of the classical prophets. Both began in the days of Jeroboam the second, but Amos prophesied for a very brief period, while Hosea may have continued almost to the fall of the northern kingdom in 722 BC. Jeroboam II brought a time of prosperity, both politically and economically, unparalleled since the glorious days of Solomon. Amos and Hosea exposed the fragile nature of this prosperity that would be shattered in the sudden change that occurred with the emergence of the Assyrian Empire. The judgment of God on the nations, including Israel and Judah, was fast approaching. And then there's a little paragraph about Amos that I'm going to skip. Okay. Hosea was more concerned with the unfaithfulness of Israel to the Lord and to the covenant. The symbolism of Hosea's marriage to an unfaithful wife is used as a metaphor of God's covenant with unfaithful Israel. Despite the numerous proclamations of judgment, Hosea is filled with love language as the Lord yearned for a renewed relationship with his people. The book also offers significant glimpses of hope and restoration. Sadly, there was no response from the people, and within a generation the northern kingdom collapsed under the weight of the Assyrian imperialism. The day of the Lord that the people anticipated as one that would bring fulfillment of the covenant blessings brought instead the full weight of the covenant curses, as they were carried off into captivity and their land left in ruin.
That's so good.
That's so hard.
That is really...
That's so sad.
Yeah.
It's so sad to me that the Lord gave all these warnings and all these chances, and his people still said no.
And it's like that for generations and generations and generations, like starting in like Kings through all of the major and minor until the end of the New Testament.
Really, it started in Exodus.
Yeah, you're right. So basically,
I mean, technically it started in Genesis with Adam and Eve. People just always say no to God.
The whole Old Testament, everyone's his chosen people that he loves the most, the apple of his eye, the like group of people that he would do anything for.
Yeah.
Just always say no, push him away.
Turn to other gods.
Turn to other false gods that can literally do nothing for them.
Except cause ruin.
Except cause demonic activity and ruin is just... That's really hard to read.
Yeah.
There might be a scripture in Hosea, I can't remember. It might be in Jeremiah. I don't know, because I've recently been in both of those. There's a verse that talks about... dang it. I don't remember. I think it's in Jeremiah, and it says something like, God would do anything for the love of his life, but he had to, like, give her up. Using, like, husband-wife language.
You love her when you let her go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's paraphrasing. That's from the Book of Allison. But it says something like that. And whenever the Bible uses, like, husband-wife language for God and us, that makes me so emotional. Yeah. And that happens in Hosea.
And that, I mean, that's ultimately the point of marriage, is to reflect our relationship with him.
Yeah.
So...
Sweetie, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Why don't you start since I just read all that?
Okay. I have a little section that's called Climate of the Times that I could read. I feel like yours did it, but it's just a couple sentences.
Yeah, read it.
It says, Israel's last 6 kings were especially wicked. They promoted heavy taxes, oppression of the poor, idol worship, and total disregard for God. Israel was subjected to Assyria and was forced to pay tribute, which depleted its few remaining resources. So those are the kind of things that they were struggling with at the time. And I'll start in verse 1.
All right.
I have to move this.
We're trying really hard to get our audio to be better.
Yeah, trying. All right, Hosea 1:1. The Lord gave this message to Hosea, son of Beeri, during the years when Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah were kings of Judah, and Jeroboam, son of Jehoash, was king of Israel. When the Lord first began speaking to Israel through Hosea, he said to him, "Go and marry a prostitute, so that some of her children will be conceived in prostitution. This will illustrate how Israel has acted like a prostitute by turning against the Lord and worshiping other gods." So Hosea married Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she became pregnant and gave Hosea a son. And the Lord said, "Name this child Jezreel, for I am about to punish King Jehu's dynasty to avenge the murders he committed at Jezreel," which that was back in Kings. Mm-hmm. So if you want to read about that story, it's recorded in Kings. "In fact, I will bring an end to Israel's independence. I will break its military power in the Jezreel Valley." Do you want me to stop there or keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. Soon Gomer became pregnant again and gave birth to a daughter. And the Lord said to Hosea, "Name your daughter Lo-ruhamah," meaning not loved. Aw.
That's so sad.
"For I will no longer show love to the people of Israel or forgive them, but I will show love to the people of Judah. I will free them from their enemies, not with weapons and armies or horses and charioteers, but by my power as the Lord their God." After Gomer had weaned Lo-ruhamah, she again became pregnant and gave birth to a second son. She's getting pregnant back to back to back. That's wild.
Is.
And the Lord said, "Name him Lo-ami," which means not my people. For Israel is not my people, and I am not their God. Keep going. When does yours split up? Mine doesn't split up in this commentary.
I don't have a split until chapter 2.
Do you want me to just keep going?
Yeah, let's just finish this out and then
Okay.
we can.
Verse 10. "Yet the time will come when Israel's people will be like the sands of the seashore, too many to count. Then, at the place where they were told, 'You are not my people,' it will be said, 'You are children of the living God.' Then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together. They will choose one leader for themselves, and they will return from exile together." Thank the Lord. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel,
Wow.
when God will again plant his people. Is it storming outside?
Shouldn't be.
Oh, dang. Do you think that messed up?
We're not relying on the Wi-Fi, are we? I think we're good.
I guess not.
Sorry. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, our light is flickering. Just gonna check the weather real quick. No, it's not storming.
It's still flickering out there.
It's okay.
All right.
It's okay.
I'm going to start back at verse 11. "Then the people of Judah and Israel will unite together. They will choose one leader for themselves, and they will return from exile together. What a day that will be, the day of Jezreel, when God will again plant his people in his land."
So good.
That is good.
So that whole first chapter is basically God instructing Hosea, marry a prostitute, you're going to have kids, and here's what you're going to name the kids.
Those names are sad.
Yeah. And so
I would hate for the Lord to name me something like that.
No, I have this little note in my Bible, and it's called Children's Strange Names. I just wanted to read it because I feel like it gives some good explanation to the names.
That's good.
So it says, at God's direction, Hosea named his 3 children in a way that symbolized God's anger. Their names show God's increasing judgment against Israel's adultery. First comes punishment, then a loss of love, and finally total divorce. The first name, Jezreel, refers to a historical incident from 2 Kings 9 through 10. Jezreel was the place where King Jehu slaughtered a wicked king and all his associates. Hosea lived to see his prediction of punishment on Jehu's house fulfilled, when the last king in Jehu's line was murdered. See 2 Kings 15, 8 through 12.
Punishment, however, was not the last word. Jezreel has a double meaning, both to scatter and to sow. In Hosea 1:11 and in 2:22 through 23, which we'll read in a second, Jezreel takes on the hopeful sense of planting new life. Hosea's other two children's names are similarly turned from curses to blessings. God's anger leads to new life.
That's good.
Yeah.
God's anger leads to new life. That kind of reminds me of, there's a part in Hebrews, I think it's Hebrews 11 or 12, where it talks about God the Father as a disciplinary, and how when we feel like we're being disciplined by him, we should actually be thankful, because that makes us legitimate children.
Yeah.
And if he's not disciplining us as a father and kind of showing that anger and wrath whenever we're in sin, if he doesn't do that, it means we're illegitimate children and we're not really his. So I think it kind of relates just in the sense that, like, when God, God's anger and his judgment and his discipline brings about new life and brings about, like,
it's growth.
It's pruning.
Yeah.
It's pruning.
Wow,
it gets rid of the bad and it lets the new good stuff grow.
Yeah. Can you imagine being one of those children?
No, I would feel so
carrying
cursed.
that name. So I'm excited to see how it,
how the Lord redeems it.
Yeah, because the subheading for chapter 2 in my Bible is Israel punished and restored.
I love that.
So,
that's so good.
Yeah.
I am curious why, because I know that Israel and Judah were both wicked. Why is he condemning Israel but wanting to save Judah? Is there a way that we can find that out? I don't really get why.
Well, remember Hosea is focused on the northern, because remember after Solomon, Israel split into two different kingdoms. So there was Judah, which I think was the southern kingdom, and then I think the northern kingdom just kept the name Israel. So there was Israel and Judah.
Why is Judah getting saved and not Israel? Did Judah do something good, or?
I'm sure there's stuff with Judah, because a lot of the other prophets focus on that, on the southern kingdom. And so.
Oh, here, I have a little note about it. Israel and Judah had been a united kingdom under David and Solomon. After Solomon's death, a civil dispute had arisen, and the land was divided into a northern kingdom, Israel, and a southern kingdom, Judah. Although Hosea spoke mainly to the northern kingdom, his concern, like God's, was for the entire nation of Israelites, including those from the kingdom of Judah. Just as Hosea prophesied, God helped Judah because Judah had a few kings who honored him. Shortly after defeating Israel, the Assyrian emperor Sennacherib invaded Judah and besieged Jerusalem. He was driven off by an angel's powerful and dramatic intervention. That's in Isaiah 36. So all of Israel's kingdoms must have been, but Judah had a couple that were that were okay, and so maybe that's why God has a little bit of favor on Judah.
He's honoring that faithfulness.
He's honoring that faithfulness of those few kings. Anything else that you can think of?
No, I mean, if you don't know the story of Hosea, there's a book called Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers, and they made a movie about it a couple years ago. And that's, she drew her inspiration from this story of Hosea marrying the prostitute, and just the show of God's faithfulness through that story. So it's a beautiful book. Highly recommend. The movie is great if you watch it just as a movie.
Yeah.
It's not as great if you're watching it after you read the book. So.
Yeah, the book's better.
The book's so good. Okay. You ready to go to chapter 2?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So, again, my little subheading is Israel punished and restored. So, chapter 2, verse 1. Say of your brothers, my people, and of your sisters, my loved one. Rebuke your mother, rebuke her, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband. Let her remove the adulterous look from her face and the unfaithfulness from between her breasts. Oh, man, this is This is tough. Otherwise, I will strip her naked and make her as bare as on the day she was born. I will make her like a desert, turn her into a parched land, and slay her with thirst.
Slay your enemies. Sorry, I just heard that audio in my head.
I will not show my love to her children because they are the children of adultery. Their mother has been unfaithful and has conceived them in disgrace. She said, I will go after my lovers who give me my food and my water, my wool and my linen, my olive oil and my drink. Do you want to stop there or keep going?
I think you should keep going.
Okay. Therefore, I will block her path with thorn bushes. I will wall her in so that she cannot find her way. She will chase after her lovers, but not catch them. She will look for them, but not find them. Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now. She has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Therefore, I will take away my grain when it ripens, and my new wine when it is ready. I will take back my wool and my linen, intended to cover her naked body. So now I will expose her lewdness before the eyes of her lovers. No one will take her out of my hands. I will stop all her celebrations, her yearly festivals, her new moons, her Sabbath days, all her appointed festivals. I will ruin her vines and her fig trees, which she said were her pay from her lovers. I will make them a thicket, and wild animals will devour them. I will punish her for the days she burned incense to the Baals. She decked herself with rings and jewelry and went after her lovers. But me she forgot, declares the Lord.
Oh, this makes me so
It's really
sad.
Emotional.
Oh my gosh.
So,
And mine says, and went out to look for her lovers, but forgot all about me.
so let's stop there because the
makes me
next part
feel-
goes into kind of the redemption piece.
That
But
makes me feel so guilty. If you haven't caught on already, this is, I mean, we believe that this is a story that actually literally happened, of
Yeah.
course, but it really is all a big metaphor for, like, Hosea is God and Gomer is us.
Yeah.
So
the people
how
of Israel.
the people of Israel and how believers very often will choose false idols over the Lord. We will, quote unquote, commit adultery and prostitute ourselves out to these other things that mean nothing,
Yeah.
when really we could get everything that we needed and everything that we've ever wanted
Yeah.
from a relationship with God, from a marriage with God. You know what I
Wow.
mean?
That's
And
so
that's
beautiful.
just, it's powerful because in our human minds, you try to put yourself, like I think about me and Derek, like what if I had a problem with adultery and I kept like cheating on him or something, and I kept going out and coming back and saying, I'm sorry, like, please forgive me, but then I would do it again and he would forgive me over and over and over again. And that's kind of how it is in redeeming love. Like, she goes and betrays her husband multiple times, but he always welcomes her back with grace and forgiveness and love, and he just never lets her go completely. He still chases after her, even though she has just wanted so many other things. And I'm like, within our human ability, like, we would never be able to act with the grace that God acts with for us. Like, you know, a lot of the times we're like, oh, like, some people can forgive when their spouse cheats on them the first time, but then after the second time, they're like,
they're done.
That's usually when people are done, which it's extremely painful. But I think about how much pain God is in every time we turn away, and just this marriage language and how he's lamenting that, like, we forget about him. Oof, it makes me emotional.
I think it's crazy. It talks about, you know, stripping her naked.
Yeah.
I don't know, that just hits hard. Like, that the Lord is saying, you know, I'm going to strip you down. And that's not necessarily
in a
meaning
degrading
literally
way.
like you're going to have to walk around naked, but I think about it in the sense of when we continue to turn away from God, like, we are
almost stripping ourselves
That's what
of
I was about to
every
say.
defense we have, every blessing we have, like every good thing.
Yeah.
We are allowing it to be ripped off of us every single time we seek something that isn't him.
Yeah. We're basically taking his hand off of us and saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out into the Wild West on my own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just see what happens to me.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
This
next section is going to make me weepy.
Yeah, same.
I already see it in verse 19.
I know. I really love verses 6 through 8.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in verse 7, it says, she will chase after her lovers but not catch them. She will look for them but not find them.
Mm-hmm.
Then she will say, I will go back to my husband as at first, for then I was better off than now.
Mm-hmm.
Which just makes me so sad because it's like, God, we're so much better off with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes us getting to a moment where we're stripped down.
Yeah.
And no one else is there when we're turning to them.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, my lovers who gave me all these things, they're not here?
Money, fame, what could lovers be? It could be anything that you idolize over God.
Yeah, and it takes that for us to realize, oh, I was better off before. Mm-hmm. And then, he says, she has not acknowledged that I was the one who gave her the grain, the new wine and oil, who lavished on her the silver and gold. Like, we think that all these great things that we have in life come from
anywhere but God.
Yeah. And that's where it's hard for me to understand. I do understand, but it's hard for me to accept why people refuse to tithe. Because I know ultimately it's just a lack of understanding
you just
and
don't
trust.
think that you have it type of thing.
Yeah. But when you read things like this in the Word of God, where it's like, it's from me. It's all, I'm the one who gave you all of that.
Yeah. Every good gift comes from God.
Yeah. And to think that he can't continue to give us more.
Right. We think we earned it, and that's why we're so stingy with it, right?
Yeah.
Is because we think we got it by our own hands.
Yeah.
But when we realize that it's God that actually gives these things to us and provides these things, and that he's the God that owns cattle on 1,000 hills.
Yeah.
We're like, we have unending resources when we have him.
Truly.
And when our hearts are pure towards him.
Yeah.
And so why
should we worry about 10%?
Why worry about 10% when you didn't even get that anyway? Like, you didn't even get that. It wasn't out of your strength.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you had to work a job, but, like, how'd you get that job? Like, the Lord has the power to give and to take away anytime he wants.
Yeah. He's providing for you through that job. He's providing for you through, a work ethic that he's placed inside of you. Like,
yeah.
It's all from him. Nothing is of our own doing.
I know. I keep learning that over and over again.
I just love, it's like, she has not acknowledged that I was the one.
Yeah.
It just makes me emotional because I think, how many times was I the one who didn't acknowledge that he was the one who gave it all?
Yeah. We're supposed to see ourselves in this. This is supposed to be a mirror, right? We're supposed to see the Israelites and not villainize them and not judge them and not think that we're so far off from them, but actually it's just looking in the mirror because we mess up. Even though we have the Bible and we can see how history played out, we still act like them.
Yeah.
Doesn't, Jesus is the thing that transforms us out of that.
Yeah.
But we still act like that in default. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That last part of the verse, she decked herself with rings and jewelry and went after her lovers, but me she forgot.
She was trying to make herself look beautiful for something that wouldn't ultimately accept her.
Yeah.
I forgot about her first love. Me.
I hope that I never...
Stop it. Stop. I know what you're going to say. This is painful. Why is this painful?
I hope that the Lord never looks down on me and says, you went after all of them. but you forgot about me.
Me.
Like, I never want him to look at me
Me neither.
and think that I've forgotten him. And I wonder how many times he has.
I mean, yeah, we've already all done this, but yeah. I think about, like, in these situations when we're thinking about the things that we're thinking about and talking about it, I'm like, I would almost rather never have everything that I want, because I think I would be too tempted to start looking to those things and relying on those things.
Yeah.
Like, I almost don't even want to be put in a position where I'm tempted
Yes.
to idolize something else. And if that means I have to live without, like...
Oh, that's so good.
And that's hard for your flesh to say.
Yeah. I think about...
But...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it.
I think about how he's talking about stripping her and taking away everything from her. Mm-hmm. Ruining her vines and her trees and all of that. And I think about what you were just saying, how, it's almost better to be without.
Yeah.
And my mind goes to the story of Gideon in Judges, when he had this massive army of 30,000 men, 300,000 men, something like that. I can't remember now. And God whittled it down intentionally to 300.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Gideon, I'm doing this so that Israel cannot take the glory that belongs to me.
Yeah.
Because if he had this massive army, they would say, yeah, look at how strong and mighty we are. Mm-hmm. But when it's 300 men against, thousands.
God wanted to claim that miracle. He wanted to get glory for that miracle of 300 men beating the huge army that was against them.
And sometimes we think we have to have more. We have to have the greatest, the best, the biggest. Right. When really the Lord can say, no, look how great I can be with so little. Mm-hmm. Look what I can do for you with so little. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what he's doing. Like, the stripping away from her is not out of hatred or
anger.
Yeah, it's not something that God is doing out of spite.
I think he just wants her to realize.
Yeah.
He just wants her to understand.
Yeah. That it's better with less if you have him.
Yeah. Than to have more without him, because then you can just get yourself in a really bad spot.
Yeah.
That's hard to get out of.
So good.
That's emotional.
I literally I don't know when I wrote this.
Mm-hmm.
Some point when I was struggling, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But under that verse, I wrote, oh, I'm getting emotional. It's not even that big of a deal. I wrote, I'm sorry for forgetting you, Lord. Mm. I feel like that's something that we have to say every day.
Yeah.
At least I do. Like, there are so many moments when I just want to chase after other things.
Mm-hmm. It's really easy to forget everything that he's done. And that's why, like, when you're reading through the Old Testament and God constantly proves himself through speeches through the prophets.
Yeah.
The prophets come up and are like, God pulled you out of Egypt. Yeah. God did all these things. God parted the sea. God gave you manna from heaven. God, he, like, the prophets recount everything that happened in the first 5 books of the Bible so that these people will remember him.
Yes.
And remember what he's done. Because when you don't remember the good things that God has done for you, you forget and you chase other things.
Remembrance is so important.
It's so important.
That's something that the Lord has really been highlighting to me probably the last 6 months or so. And I, like, just as you're saying that, I'm realizing, oftentimes we think of prophets as, like, the future.
Right.
Like, they're telling of things of the future, but I think they have just as important a role of remembering the past.
100%.
And reminding everyone else around them, like, hey, the Lord did this already.
That's so good.
Ugh, so good.
You want to keep going?
Yeah, you want me to keep reading, or you want to read?
I can do it if you want. Do you care?
No, I don't care.
Okay. All right. Chapter 2, verse 14. This is the best. This is the best.
I'm already emotional.
I know. I might get a little choked up. Verse 14. But then I will win her back once again.
Mine says, therefore I am now going to allure her.
Allure her. I will lead her. Oh, gosh. I literally don't know if I can say this. I will lead her into the desert and speak tenderly to her there. I will return her vineyards to her and transform the valley of trouble into a gateway of hope. Good grief. She will give herself to me there, and as she did long ago when she was young, when I freed her from her captivity in Egypt. Verse 16. When that day comes, says the Lord, you will call me my husband instead of my master. That's so intimate. What?
And that speaks.
I've not read this version before. I have read Hosea in CSB. What is this? NLT?
And mine's NIV, and it says similar to yours, my husband, my master.
Ah,
And that speaks to the tenderness and the intimacy of marriage, and that
yeah.
marriage is not intended to be
Yeah.
a master and a servant.
Right.
It's husband and wife. It is this beautiful
Yeah.
union.
Mm-hmm. O Israel, I will wipe the many names of Baal from your lips, and you will never mention them again. On that day I will make a covenant with all the wild animals, and the birds of the sky, and the animals that scurry along the ground, so that they will not harm you. I will remove all weapons of war from the land, all swords and bows, so that you can live unafraid in peace and safety. I think that speaks a lot to what husbands are supposed to be, like what God is as a husband, but also what earthly husbands are supposed to be, is just a protector.
Yeah.
And like
A
making a
peacemaker.
space where his wife can feel peace and safety, not just physically, but emotionally,
Spiritually and
and
mentally.
yes, all the things. Verse 19, I will make you my wife forever. Ooh, I'm getting all the tingles inside. I will make you my wife forever, showing you righteousness and justice, unfailing love and compassion. I will be faithful to you and make you mine, and you will finally know me as the Lord.
Mine, in those, it keeps saying, I will betroth you. I will betroth you to me
Aw.
forever. I will betroth you in
No.
righteousness and justice, in love and compassion. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord.
Whoa. Verse 21, in that day I will answer, says the Lord. I will answer the sky as it pleads for clouds, and the sky will answer the earth with rain. Then the earth will answer the thirsty cries of the grain, the grapevines, and the olive trees. And they will turn, and in turn they will answer. And they in turn will answer, Jezreel, God plants. Which yours said that Jezreel means God sows.
Yeah, one of the
Okay.
other meanings is to sow or to
So
plant.
good. At that time, this is verse 23, I will plant a crop of Israelites and raise them for myself. I will show love to those I called not loved. And to those I called not my people, I will say, now you are my people. And they will reply, you are our God.
That's the redemption of
That's
those children's names.
The redemption of the children's names. There's a really good little note I have here on mine. This is a note on Hosea 2:19 through 20. Back when it says, I will make you my wife forever. It says, God's wedding gift to his people in both Hosea's day and in our own is his compassion. Through no merit of our own, God forgives us and makes us right with him. There is no way for us by our own efforts to reach God's high standards, but he graciously accepts us, forgives us, and draws us into relationship with him. In that relationship, we have personal and intimate communion with him. That is one of the most beautiful Old Testament scriptures I think I've ever read. Like, if I could, plaster that, if I was going to get if I was going to get tattoos of scriptures all over my body, that would be one of them.
Yeah.
Just to, have with me forever.
That's so sweet. There's I have a couple of good notes in here,
Yeah, go
but
for
one
it.
is on the husband master.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's talking about where it says husband, master, and bales.
That's verse 16, right?
Yes, this is for 16 and 70. In that day declares the Lord, you will call me my husband. You will no longer call me my master. I will remove the names of the Baals from her lips. And it's talking on those three words, husband, master, Baals. And it says a play on words. Of the two Hebrew words for husband, one that means master is identical to the name of the god Baal.
there will be such a vigorous reaction against Baal worship that this Hebrew word for master will no longer be used of the Lord.
That's cool. You know what I was thinking about when you were just reading that? Like, he's gonna remove from her lips the names of her lovers. I'm like, that sounds like God, like, healing her soul ties that she created.
Yeah, you're totally
what
right.
I mean?
It made me think of one of my favorite shows is Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. It's like a show from the 90s. Jane
What is it
Seymour.
called?
Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman.
I don't think I've ever heard
It's
of it.
wonderful.
Oh,
You'd
really?
like it, yeah. It's like based in the 1800s out west.
Oh, fun.
Anyways, there's a scene in that show where one of the characters, Myra, she was a prostitute, and this man in the town, they fall in love with each other, and she winds up like ripping up her contract with the guy who owns the saloon because she didn't want to be a prostitute anymore, and she goes and marries this other guy. But there's this scene right after she leaves the saloon, and she's like, she just got new clothes, like she's getting rid of all her
Rags.
prostitute clothes and stuff. And, and at that time, if you wore a lot of makeup, it was usually because you were a prostitute, like you had the brightly colored lips and eye makeup and stuff. And there's this scene where she tries on her new clothes and she walks out, and the main character, Dr. Quinn, who Jane Seymour plays, she like sees her and she takes a handkerchief and she wipes the lipstick off of her lips. And it was like this beautiful symbolism of like just wiping away the life that she had been living in order to now step into this new life. And that's what I thought of
tendy.
when I read that, like the Lord is literally wiping the prostitution off of us. And the love of other things, of other gods, of whatever, so that we can
fully love him.
Yeah, and that we wouldn't even be marked by our old life anymore.
Right.
Like that was like a mark that,
it's like
hey,
regeneration.
I'm a prostitute,
Yeah.
And it's just so beautiful.
I love it.
I have another little note that I really, really love, and it's on verse 20.
Yeah.
Where it says, I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you will acknowledge the Lord. And that word for faithfulness is about dependability. And then the word, so between the two, like the faithfulness and the acknowledgement, the word for that acknowledge is the Hebrew word for this. The Hebrew for this word can refer to intimate sexual relations, but it also refers to active acknowledgement of a covenant partner. And I think that's really beautiful because, one, it's talking about obviously the sexual relations of a husband and a wife, but that it's within that acknowledgement of a covenant relationship. And the Lord is saying, hey, you're going to acknowledge this covenant relationship that I have with you. And covenant, I feel like, is something...
We sleep on it, right? Is that what you're thinking?
I mean, kind of, yeah. I think covenant isn't given enough
credit.
Yeah, because covenant is so important.
Yeah.
And
I don't even think we really know what it means.
Yeah, like I feel like we have a lack of understanding of the depth. And I think in Hebrew culture, they really understood covenant a lot better than we do now.
Yeah.
And
we view covenant as like, oh, we can get out of it if we want to. Like nothing's forever type of thing, which is sad.
The Lord has made a covenant with his people.
Yeah.
And that is a big deal.
Yeah, and he's been faithful in it the whole time.
Yeah.
But they haven't.
Man.
It's so good.
Any
other thoughts?
I think my favorite verse in this section is 15.
Okay.
Well, first, I love 14, where it says, I will lead her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her.
That's just sweet.
That's sweet. But 15, there I will give her back her vineyards and will make the valley of Achor, which means trouble, the valley of trouble, a door of hope. There she will respond as in the days of her youth, as in the day she came up out of Egypt. And really, I'm just resonating with that because of what I'm currently walking through. And like just feeling like I'm in the valley of trouble, you know, and hopelessness and darkness, and that he turns that into a door of hope.
Yeah. And he'll bring you back to where you first started.
And like your youth.
In your youth.
And your
first
childlike
love.
faith
Yeah.
and love.
For him.
That's so sweet to
Isn't
me.
that so
Like,
hopeful? That's hopeful.
You know, that,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always known this, that he takes those hard moments and turns them into something beautiful. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that phrase, a door of hope,
Yeah.
and then that also speaks to the fact that you have a choice of walking through the door or not.
Mm.
You can stay there,
You can stay in misery.
or you can take what he's turned into a door of hope and you can walk through it,
Yeah.
and you can go back. And this sense of taking back to the days of your youth, that's like redemption of all innocence, of
Yeah.
all brokenness. Like,
Mhm.
everything that you've ever done or lived through or experienced is redeemed,
Yeah.
and you're taken all the way back to the start through that door of hope, which is really beautiful.
That's really speaking to you
Yeah.
in your situation.
Yeah.
That's so good. You should hold on to that
Yeah.
when you're feeling down.
I will.
Gateway of hope.
And that he's giving back her vineyards, because before it said he would take all her vines.
Yeah. And you kind of felt like you've lost something.
Yeah.
He's going to give it back.
That's so that's so tender of him.
I know. I know. It's crazy. We literally don't deserve it.
Just the gentleness of his love
Mm-hmm.
blows my mind.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about how we don't deserve it, and but he gives it to us anyways. It doesn't make really any sense,
Yeah.
because humans can't. We're not there yet, but there's this note on Hosea 3, verse 1 that says, Hebrews loved their raisin cakes. I guess we'll get there next time. Go and love your wife. And even though she commits adultery.
Though they turn to other gods and love the sacred raisin cakes.
What?
Next episode.
Raisin cakes. Find the recipe here. That's good.
Yeah.
So good.
What a beautiful start.
Yeah.
And there's,
So
12
much
more
to go
chapters.
through. Yeah,
So-
there's more redemption to happen. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope that you enjoyed this sweet, sweet time starting this story together. We hope you'll join us in the next couple weeks to do Hosea 3 and 4. Like,
share and
share, subscribe, comment.
Please comment. I want more people to comment
Lizzie
so
stresses
bad.
comments every time.
Well, I just really want to know what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah.
I love
Conversating about it.
Yeah, I want to know your thoughts. Like,
I want to know you. Oh, oh, oh.
yeah, so comment
David Archuleta.
if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
Please comment.
Yes, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.